And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer. He's joining us for the season finale of Mare of Easttown. If you've not hit the sub button or the bell, please do so. We have all kinds of different content on the channel. We're going to keep going. We're not done just because Mare is over, so look out for that. And yeah, let's start. I think I'm going to jump into sort of the Ross family situation because there's a lot to talk about, and specifically how the structure of the episode played out, because that all ties into it. Because we start where we ended last week, where Billy and John are at the river, and clearly John's going to kill Billy. Mayor comes, breaks it up, and we're basically told, okay, this is what happened. John and Aaron were a thing. DJ is John's kid. He ended up meeting her that evening. She was talking about exposing everything, and he killed her, and that's that. And I believed it, to be honest. I thought there would still be some more mystery. There was something else, but I did believe his story. Then we get to sort of the middle of the episode, and clearly there's more to it. And of course, the massive revelation. No, in fact, it was Ryan. I was genuinely shocked by it. It all connected with Mr. Carroll's firearm that Ryan took, and the whole thing about the shed and him cutting grass. And then we get the journey of, Mare taking Ryan in, and the fall of, Lori, because this all sort of rests on her shoulders. I love the structure of the episode. I love the way it was told. Thinking back to past episodes, I think everything sort of hit properly. I didn't feel cheated in any way. And the reason I say that is a lot of times in shows like this, when you have an big ending, sometimes you're like, oh, that pisses me off, or that didn't work. To me, everything worked pretty damn well. Guys, what did you think? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think this sort of Ross family story works? Did you like the structure of the episode? Go.
I I thought it was going to be Siobhan just because the way that they set her character up, and I posted that in the comments because I watched the show too, but I have class on Monday nights normally, but so I thought that the way they were showing her, mental instability, they mentioned that her brother's heart was broken. So I was like, well, shit, maybe he was with Aaron. So, I knew I was reaching, but I was just like, there's going to be one more big twist. So then, like you said, they started with the whole John thing and him confessing, but immediately her being skeptical made me skeptical, but I didn't know who he was protecting. So I didn't know if he was protecting Lori or Ryan. I knew he was protecting one of the two because he was already willing to kill Billy. So I was like, I know it's not Billy, but I thought maybe his wife found out about him sleeping with the child and like she lost it. And then that's who I kind of steered towards because I was like, that would be a big twist because, the betrayal of that Mare would feel that, that's her best friend. And then when they started keying in on a couple of the things and they showed that it was Brian that did it, I wasn't super surprised. But to me, the way that they filmed it, the way that they set everything out, it made so much sense. It I felt like no character was really a good guy. Uh, Everybody had their faults. I didn't really like a lot of the characters. I guess morally, I didn't like any of them. They were all great acting wise, but by the end of it, I was like, this felt real. It was so well done. I really did enjoy the season finale. It didn't feel like anything, like you said, it didn't feel like anything was missed or anything was left hanging or anything.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with that too. It feels very real because like with John Ross's motivation, I kind of expect him to be just kind of an all-out Twin Peaks villain towards the end. And he is messed up. He's a very messed up human being. Like his motivations for covering up the murder, make a lot of sense now because it's not just totally a selfish thing. It's because it was his son who committed it. So it's yes an evil man, but it's an evil man trying to do a thing that's that a lot of parents would do in this case. They wouldn't want to see their kid go to jail. So it's him taking that heat instead. And it's like Spencer said, I knew early on, especially with the amount of time that was left, I'm like, there's a bigger twist. I'm pretty sure John Ross is involved. I've been accusing him pretty early on in the series. I know that he's involved somehow, but they're making it pretty clear that he's hiding something and there's more. And I thought there was still the possibility for both crimes, both major cases to be connected, the kidnappings and the murder. But it turns out they took us for a different loop. Uh, like you said, Brian, with it being John Ross and Lori's son, that was really surprising to me because I did not expect that at all. And for them to tie things together in this way, and with it being his son, it still makes a lot of sense, and it works really well. And it also explains why Lori would lie.
Yeah, and playing on the Lori angle, there wasn't a line of dialogue that said this, but I sort of felt it. One of the themes of the whole season, not only the drug abuse stuff, but also Mare losing her son, and now Lori's in a way losing her son. And there's that moment in the car where I felt that it wasn't said out loud, but I did feel that was sort of a theme and sort of an idea that was running in that storyline. And by the end of it, I felt so bad for Lori. I was just like, damn, like what else could she have done? I completely understood her keeping the secret when she did learn the truth, and she was even going to raise DJ. There's that scene where she's getting the ear surgery done, and just the look on her face, you're like, damn. Like, I felt horrible for her, but I thought it played well with the scene where she breaks down. Her and Mare sort of reconcile their issue, and she cries, and it's a nice little scene between the two. Probably Emmy worthy, I would argue. I think the show's going to get a lot of nominations, as a matter of fact. But
I agree.
any thoughts
I,
on the
I
Lori portion?
I think the part where they were in the car, her initial reaction being basically like, "Fuck you, Mayor," because at the end of the day, the the son is guilty of being the one that pulled the trigger, but John is the one that deserved to go to jail. John's the one that deserved, I believe, just because we were trying to do the math. We were talking about it before. The family reunion was in 2017. I think that they're saying that this was 2019. I haven't looked it up online, but I think that's what uh, I'd watched some after things, and when they were doing the research of the town and everything else, I think this was supposed to take place in 2019. So even 2 years back. So that would make Aaron like 14. So John was sleeping with a 14-year-old and trying to be like, well, she's the only one that gets me. So when they were talking about sending John to jail, whether he was the murderer or not, I was down for it. I was like, he needs to go for forever. Good. And but for Lori, she's like, he was willing to take the rap. Why are you taking my son away from me? Why couldn't you just let it be? That scene, that's the one that got me. I was just like, damn. And then the scene at the end where they kind of reconcile and stuff, I was talking about before we started recording. It reminded me of like an MMA fight, like where she was trying to shoot for the double leg and Mare was trying to like fight her off.
Well, there was a moment when they started going down. I'm like, wait, what? And then
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, I get it. She's legitimately collapsing under the weight of her emotion, and arguably somewhat going into shock, I would say. Just sort of the
Yeah, and enough grief can do that to you.
absolutely.
Yes. But
Uh,
me being the asshole I am, that's all I
It would be a great meme to just kind of see that like set to like a to like sort of a WWE type thing, with a like with announcers commentating on it.
This is why we missed you on these reviews, Spencer. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Anything else on Lori or that? I thought the scene when I don't know if I said it on here. I know I said it before the recording, but when Ryan runs into that house and he starts screaming, she knows," that actor does. I mean, I was so convincing, and it was so horrifying. The whole realization of what was taking place, and him realizing it, and how scared he was, and the look on her face. I thought all of that, the music choices, the way it was edited, was very powerful.
That
Well,
that was a great scene. Like you said, he's running away from her. He runs straight home. He's not trying to run away from Mare. He's literally going home because he's terrified. And he goes in home. He runs into his mom's arms. The look on her face, and then they just pan to the street and Mare and all the police showing up, and like that whole sequence was very powerful.
yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't sure what he was going to do then and there in that moment. I wasn't sure whether he was running off or trying to run home. And, it's kind of weird that Mare would, confront him at a distance like that anyway. But I guess, you could see in that moment, she herself was just kind of, well, prior to that moment, she was very conflicted because you could see the scene where she's kind of like almost breaking down and weighing, in her head, like, how is this going to affect everything, and how it affects Lori and, this kid who, like, it's her best friend's kid. So this is almost like her, arresting her nephew in a way, and then, destroying her relationship with her best friend. And Mary gets a lot of crap for what she does and how she does it, and the fact that she's honestly just not really a very emotionally available person in the first place. And now one of the few people in town that tolerates and likes her, that generally likes her as a person, she's risking losing that by arresting him. And not only that, we had the because you think back to the scene. I think was it episode 1 or episode 2 where she's talking to Lori about, I think it's episode 2 where she's talking to Lori about, and Lori mentions the fact that Mare's pushing people away, and Mare mentioned being, the possibility of losing Lori, and Lori said that she wouldn't let that happen. And yet we end this series, in a place where that might actually happen, and Mare realizes that, and it seems like it almost just, like it almost destroys her in a way, and she's pacing back and forth, and you can definitely see the emotion on her face, like that whole part, where we got everybody's reaction to the revelations of what's actually going on here. That was very well acted.
The
Yeah,
the le- Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like Larry just said, you get that journey between friends because Mare at that point, Lori's her only person left. Her mom, I mean, she loves her mom, but her mom causes her almost more stress than she.
I love Helen.
Oh,
She's one of my favorite characters.
I didn't get to be on that with you guys, but when my favorite, the affair was revealed, like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
dude, so great. But you know, her person is Lori. That's her best friend. It's the person who she goes to. It's the person she hangs out with. And anytime she has a problem, even with Kevin or anything else, it was her friend that was there for her. While everybody else, was stuck in their feelings, and everybody else was not giving her grief on purpose, but they had their own demons to deal with. Lori didn't do that. Lori was there for her. Lori was trying to help her get through everything and to basically see the roles reversed by the end of this. And the worst part is that Mara doing her job caused it. And that that was rough for me to see that because Mare's trying to do the right thing. I mean, it's one of those things where John does need to go to prison. Like I hope he does. But when you have Ryan, yes, it was an accident. Yes, but do you just not teach a kid consequence either? Like, because that's one of those morality things. If you let it go, if you sweep it under the rug, how much would that tear Mare up? How much would that eat her up that she didn't do her job? How much would, those kind of things. So now you're spreading the guilt. What happens when the mom finally gets over the fact that he did it? Now they're holding that. There's so much like ramifications that we didn't get, but we don't need them to tell the story. But so the way that they portrayed it to me was the right way. They had that conflict, they dealt with it, and then they're moving forward finally.
Yeah, and it felt very in character for Mare also. This is what she would do. As hard as it is to do this for her, this is what she would do. She'd do her job in this case. And, even though it's the sort of thing that sort of destroys her personal life and her personal world in a very big way. these are people that are like family to her.
Well, one thing I did have a tiny issue with, and we'll go into, we did not discuss this off before the recording, the Carrie storyline. So, last week I said I did not think she was, I think I put it in the comments as well, because there was a back and forth over whether or not she was using again. And to me, it felt like the show said she wasn't. Well, I was wrong. She was using again. She was back on drugs. Fine, but then she's like, yeah, I'm going to rehab. I can't be with Drew. You take him. At the end of the day, I still don't understand the whole purpose of the Carrie story arc, and even more so now. And even Mare in that scene, if I was Mare, I would have approached that situation differently. I would have told her, look, this is fine, but we need this in writing. I need you to sign him over, because arguably she could go to rehab, get clean, come back again, and then start saying, oh, I want him back, I want him back. And so there was a few things there that I was very conflicted about in terms of the way it was all approached.
I don't disagree with you with the saying they should have got it in writing and those kind of things. I think that, to me, where they were trying to make the story important, that part of it, to me, it felt like a similar path with DJ, the baby, because it's not her kid. It's somebody who she cares for deeply, and she has been taken care of. And, she, took the child in that's not hers, but the mom and dad, her son and the baby mama is not, they weren't great people. They weren't able to take care of the baby. And I think that when you look at DJ, John's a piece of shit. I don't remember the kid's name with the black hair that they thought was a dad.
Dylan.
Yeah.
Dylan. His story arc, which I hope we get into at least.
We are. I got it.
That was crazy too. But all these people around DJ are really shitty people. But I think that Lori showed you that not only is she willing to care, but she is a good person. And I think that Mare, even though they've showed her having some faults, she's a good person also. And I think that those kind of parallels were drawn, even if vaguely. And I think that's kind of the only reason that they would even show that, they are similar people going through similar things. Because like you stated earlier with the Dylan part, or not Dylan, with Ryan being taken away from her, that's a similar storyline to Mare, where she had her kids.
That's a good point. Yeah, I really didn't that together, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of like parallels in this show like that. Like you mentioned with the custody of both kids. We have stories with that. We have of course we have a running theme of loss with multiple characters, and like it's but as far as the custody battle for Mare and her grandchild, yeah, it was a little weird they didn't get that right, but I imagine they're gonna, like, I hope she got it in writing. I guess it was just something they felt wouldn't be interesting to show on screen. That they just kind of figured the audience is like, well, where this ends. We don't really need to elaborate anymore. But yeah, it did. You would expect Mare to, especially after all this, to want it in writing. And I did take it as her, I did take it until this point in the series. My thought was that she stopped using, and I imagine she did, because she said she started using again to stay awake. So I think there was an implied, lapse, a bigger implied jump in time between the whole scene where she falls asleep and when they're meeting for the custody hearing.
I agree with you, but to me it wasn't clear enough. I do think that was the case,
and I agree with that too. Absolutely.
I think it needed to be a little more clear.
I think that was because before all this, and just people using drugs, it's one of those things where normally they don't step back. So if she was all the way up to robbing people for heroin, her fear immediately is that she used anything she's going to not have control over herself anymore, because they're not going to set. I mean, you're not going to get all the way up to like meth and crack and heroin and then be like, you know what, I'm just going to smoke weed and be cool. So, her taking, even if it was just like Adderall or something to help her kind of stay awake and keep moving. I think that what was cool is that she was using for a couple months, and she realized, I need to get better for my son. And that's the way I took it, is that although she doesn't want custody, she still wants to be a part of her kid's life, but she also realized that she has to be clean to be able to do that. So her taking that into her own hands to do it, I was, I thought it was a good journey for her character, and I I thought it helped kind of tie up that part of the storyline.
Yeah, and I feel like there should have been a scene, or some point where we saw her, take something to stay awake, and that leading to that ending at the custody hearing, because we didn't really get that. We got her falling asleep, so and it was understandable that that moment frightened her, that her son could have drowned because she fell asleep, but we never got anything prior to this ending that implied that she turned back to drugs because of it.
Well, I think that, because wasn't it right before, it was that same episode, right before that scene, there was somebody at the laundromat or whatever that was
Offering her, yeah. But she
right.
rejected it. They
She
had the scene where she was like, no,
exactly.
and then she falls asleep a scene later. So my assumption was, okay, she's stayed clean. And I think last week I was confused by that scene, because I was like, well, why would you? Was this a pro drug message? Like, it's like you should have taken the drugs to stay awake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had a few. I've griped about Carrie's story for many episodes, not just the drug storyline, but even how the show wanted us to view the character with as far as redemption. I think I just needed a little more. Maybe even a moment where Mare's like, "We're going to take custody. We're going to, but you're part of the family, or something. Where we're going to help you through this." And I don't know. I just, for
Yeah.
me, if I had
Well,
any, like I said, I love the show. I love this episode. But if I had any gripes, it would probably be the Carrie story.
well, and to me though, the way that, her therapist was talking about her, forgiveness, trying to make things right. I don't feel like she ever thought she had to make things right with Carrie. So when she basically was like, "Hey, you need to take," and I don't remember the kid's name, the grand.
Andrew, but they call him Drew.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Now that you say it, I remember. But she didn't argue. She was just like, "Yep, he'll have a place to be," and she didn't like comfort her, but she just basically said something to the effect that, "I just want Andrew to be safe, and if with me is where he's the safest, then that's where he needs to be." And it was something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, but to me, her stating that is just trying to reassure her that Andrew will always be safe. But she's, we talk about forgiveness. She doesn't forgive Carrie at all. Like, all the flashbacks that they had for all the things. I think that she, although blamed herself some for Kevin, she also blames Carrie. She blames Carrie for not being able to be there with her kid. There's a lot of, some of it's properly placed anger, but some of it is, I think they're showing her grief. And that's why, like, the last scene is her being like, talking to the therapist, and the therapist just being like, you finally ready? Are you ready to start dealing with this? So I think prior to that scene, what it's showing is that she's not ready to deal with it. And that's what I was seeing from her relationship with Carrie, was a lot of misplaced anger, a lot of misplaced guilt. And by the end of this episode, she's finally ready to start dealing with that stuff.
Yeah, and that anger is on both sides. Carrie seems to have some anger directed at Mare that's from her time when she was with her son, and and that's really misplaced, because it really seems like Mare. It seems pretty undeniable that Mare's been doing a good job taking care of Drew. So there's no reason to wrestle custody away from Mare completely and to shut her out, other than the fact that there's a personal vendetta there, and that doesn't help. That doesn't really help Drew at all. Taking him from his grandmother and never letting him see that side of the family. But and
No, go ahead, Larry.
well, I was saying, I was just saying, I was expecting that scene that Brian said, where the possibility that Mayor would have been like, yeah, I'll take custody, but we'll have you in his life. You're always welcome to visit, etc. I was expecting that, but again, the way this went down did feel in character for Mayor, especially like you said, Spencer, given where she is, that, she'd take a rip off her vape pen and be like, yeah, I'm okay with that, and just kind of, not really comfort her much.
Yeah, because, and you're talking about both of them having misplaced anger and, guilt. Carrie said it several times throughout the season about how much Kevin hated his mom, about how much Kevin resented his mom. So, I think that Carrie blames Mare for killing Kevin, but it's also the other way around. Like, Mare blames her partially because it's, the drugs and everything else. Like, so it goes both ways. Like, both of them don't like each other when it's really neither one of them that were responsible for it. Like,
that's a great take.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree with it. Yeah, both of them sort of, it had that animosity towards each other, blaming the other for Kevin's death when in fact it was neither of their fault. Yeah.
Yeah, and for both characters, it's the sort of thing that you never really hear them address in detail, what happened to Kevin. They're both not really talking about it, other than Mayor seemingly silently blaming her and her openly blaming Mayor,
On a similar note, we have a couple great scenes between Helen, Mare, and Shaban, in which they all sort of get through their shit. There's when Shaban and Mare was like, "Hey, you should go to college." That whole scene, to me, that there was no apologies within that scene, but it was just like, yeah, we're good, and you need to pursue your life. And then the moment with Helen when they're at the little restaurant and she's basically like, "Look, I'm sorry for this, and this, and I've already sort of forgiven myself." And then the whole moment of you need to forgive yourself for the Kevin situation, and sort of that idea of moving, past trauma. And I thought all three characters, it worked out. Siobhan is going to college. We get the scene where she, they see her off at the end. We get a nice scene where she performs at her father's wedding, which I quite like that. So I thought those storylines wrapped up beautifully. Did y'all feel anything was missing, or do you agree? Well, how do you feel about that?
I was on board with everything you said, except for the playing at the father's wedding thing.
I like that.
The wedding was so fucking weird.
Well, those are the moments, those are the things I loved about this show, was like you would have these almost sitcom-y moments woven into the show, especially with Helen, a lot of her stuff.
Yeah.
Her sneaking ice cream, or when she got knocked out and the whole, mix up in the basement.
Her falling off the chair.
or even that in this episode.
Did you watch the behind the scenes thing?
I've seen none of the behind the scenes stuff.
I hadn't either. I only watched this one, but they talked about what you just said. They were talking about weaving in comedy, and they talked about the whole affair thing and how they were doing that. They also talked about how much Kate Winslet had control over everything, which I didn't know.
She's a producer. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they said a lot of the dialogue, she would be like, "I don't think Mare would say that. I think she would say this." And the creator and director was just like, "Yep, go for it." So they let her do a lot of things. So a lot of the funny takes were them just doing it. And they also showed the scene where he was like, "Nightmare," or "Have a good nightmare." And he's like, "Nightmare? No, nightmare." That Evan Peters, that was just something he said. And they just thought it was so funny. They're like, "Yeah, we're just going to keep that." And when you talked about Helen Fallen, which is what triggered this whole section, she had them sew pads into her pants so that she could do it. So it wasn't like a stunt double or nothing. She had them sew pads into her pants so she could fall off the chair and do physical comedy. And I was like, damn. And then they talked about the whole dialect coach stuff. And I didn't know Siobhan is English. Like, she's
no way.
Yeah. So
I
that's
didn't
one
either. No
shit. Kate Winslet and Siobhan, who, they said the warder was like the
warder.
The murder my dirter. But yeah, Helen's every scene that she was in, we talk about just acting, and there was a couple of her scenes that were more serious, but she was almost like the comic relief, but it still felt real. It didn't feel like hokey or over the top. It fit so well into the storyline that I enjoyed it. And that to me, like you said it at the beginning, I think, Brian, with you're talking about the pacing of this episode, and I felt like the whole season was like that. It was just so well done. Each episode, when they ended with that cliffhanger, it it fed right into the next episode like perfectly. It's almost like they filmed a 7-hour movie and then just chopped it up really well, and it just flowed great.
Yeah, it was it flowed really well, and it's just like everybody's story ended very well. Mayor going in the basement, that was the best way to end it, I think, and confronting that trauma.
Attic.
Well, yeah, attic, not the basement, my mistake. Like
Wrong direction.
yeah, wrong direction, absolutely. Like Mayor going in the attic, the wedding and everything, and Shaban finally deciding to go to college, which I was starting to get tired of that storyline. If we had one more scene where someone has to convince Shaban to go to college, you know, it's like go the hell to Berkeley.
Yeah.
How many people need to tell you?
If you didn't get accepted to like what was it? Easttown Community College. Like it was like in Berkeley.
Right?
Yeah, even her girlfriend at the time was just like, yeah, go. It's like, why
I'm going
wouldn't
to
you?
break up with you
Yeah,
because
exactly.
this
Like,
is
yeah, we're
keeping
done.
you from going to Berkeley. But yeah, it ended very well. In fact, all these things wrapped up so well. Where previously and in previous episodes, I wanted to see a follow up to this, and I still kind of do, but I don't necessarily want the same thing, and I don't necessarily want something in this town with this same crew. Because everything wrapped up so neatly that it feels like a very good self-contained story. And what I want now, perhaps, is for them to maybe pull a Fargo with this, even.
Um, yeah, that'd be interesting. You mean set in the same town?
Well, set in the same town or set in the same region with a different group of characters, perhaps even a different era, but the same feel, maintain the feel of the show. The way
I
that Fargo does, because you're always getting a story about roughly the same area, covering roughly the same topics, but you're getting a different story with a different cast of characters, maybe even in a different time. And I feel like that might work well as a series, but the title is a bit of a problem because it's called Mare of Easttown. So,
Yeah.
unless
ain't
we're
doing
getting
that.
like a David of Westville or some crap.
I think
I have some ideas about a sequel, but I want to save that for the end. We still got quite a bit to go through. Um,
they
but I
drew
do have some ideas in terms of what they could do if they decide to do anything. But we have the Dylan stuff. We have so like Dylan, Jess basically says that she's like, look, I guess he hits a point where he's like, I want what's best for DJ, and so I guess that's what his motivation was. This was a little odd too, but we get the moment where he goes to Lori and gives her all the money, and basically is like, take care of the kid. That's what led, I guess, to the burning of the journals because he didn't. The position that DJ was in was a good one, and he wanted him to be taken care of, so he didn't want anything crazy coming out. Um, but I thought it was an okay story. Could have been a little better, but I thought it was okay.
I just his whole storyline, it was, to me, we talk about like redemption. He's a kid who was uh I don't know the redheaded girl's name, the one he was dating or with there for a
Like
moment.
Rihanna.
I think so, yeah. But when she confronted him, how shitty his whole life was. Like he didn't have a great home life or great anything. So him acting like an asshole, I was that 100% fit that character. But then when he drew a gun on the one girl, trying to get her involved so that they had a scapegoat, I didn't feel like he was ever going to use the gun. I felt like he was just trying to scare her. But on the same note, that doesn't make it okay. Trying to intimidate another person using a weapon like that, I was still like, he's a piece of shit. Now, I didn't think he was a murderer. I didn't think he was like a rapist. Like, he's still a giant piece of shit. But I felt like by the end of this episode, it seemed like he realized what he had done. He had grown a little bit and finally made a good decision. Now, I wish they would have went a little bit more into his character, even like, a couple minutes where it showed after him handing the money, like him going and apologizing to that girl, or, anything else showing that he had some kind of remorse. Because to me, that would have completed that story arc. Whereas this, like, he never wronged Lori. He never wronged that family. So for for him to, give her the money because it's taking care of DJ, like he's doing the right thing by DJ, but like almost like apologizing to Lori and stuff. I didn't feel like he owed her anything. So I felt somewhat like it was a good arc to kind of close him out, but I also felt like they could have done a better job kind of redeeming him towards the end.
And yeah, that shows how messed up he is, and that perhaps he 100% did the right thing, just sort of giving up and letting Lori take care of the kid. Because, I mean, think about how deep messed up DJ's parents must, not DJ, because DJ's the baby.
Dylan.
Dylan's parents must be, if Dylan is like this, if this is how Dylan communicates when he wants something.
Remember, he leaves the house at midnight to go get a Monster Energy drink and listen to Korn. And
yeah. Dylan must be real messed up because I mean the whole scene where he's chasing her with a gun and everything, and this and now that you know the reason, because we thought he was covering up something, but really he's trying to keep DJ. And it's like, this is how he does it. He doesn't just explain to her what he's trying to do. He chases her with a gun. That he doesn't explain to her that he wants the best for the baby and everything. Instead he gets his boy, who is just apparently incredibly ride or die. I don't know why other guy is so involved in all this. Yeah.
They say his name, I think, once in the entire show. I think it's Sean.
I think he's in like 4.
He's in several. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a side character, and I don't know if he ever says a single word, but he's always there with Dylan, and he's always willing to do horrible crap for Dylan, and he's not really involved in the situation. It's not his kid, it's not his personal drama, but he's the one filming at the party when they're like when they're attacking Dylan's ex-girlfriend and everything, and when Brianna is attacking her, and he's in the car when Dylan's got the gun, and he's chasing down her best friend and everything. I don't know what his dog is in this fight or why he's so involved in all of this, but him and Dylan, well, Dylan particularly, it's just like, this is the first, him giving up that money and everything for the baby. That was like the first time Dylan communicated with anybody in a way that showed him to be more than an asshat. And it was
the moment he decided not to smother the child.
Yeah, exactly right.
I felt like that was a good story arc, just showing that he's not a completely horrible person because he decided not to kill a kid.
Well, I mean, hey, that's where it was going. That was
Yeah, so he did the right thing giving that baby to Lori, because we saw his parents mostly as good people the little bit we got to see of them, but they must be horrible parents given how Dylan turned out. Dylan doesn't know how to communicate with people.
He's like, I will let you live, and I'll give you a few bucks. That's my contribution. But you're right. Yeah, he sticks the gun in Jess's face. He's like, "We're in this forever," and then we learn basically what he was referring to as destroying evidence, I guess. And that he was trying to, I guess, have DJ have a home or whatever. A little odd, but it did somewhat have resolution.
I think that too. DJ, wasn't that like John's cousin? Because they said Billy's his brother.
Oh, they're related, dude. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Aaron was not only a 14-year-old girl. She was they were cousins. They were blood related,
blood relatives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so
it was the family reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
that's the mess.
And I think DJ was trying to protect, or not DJ, Dylan was trying to protect DJ from that information getting out too. Because could you imagine, like, as you got older, if that was like common knowledge?
Oh, dude.
Yeah, yeah, and I was thinking about that too, and I think like because we have a moment I believe where Lori's watching the news and holding the baby, and it kind of seems like she thinks about that too, and that's something the show really makes you think. It's like, man, it's going to be messed up for this kid. All the drama, like he's never not going to be famous for this in this town. He'll always be known for that.
You're 100% right. It's even worse than that. There's the scene where she brings him to Ryan, and Ryan, she's like, "Hey, it's your brother," and he's "Hey," and to process the whole situation, yes, it's your brother, and you murdered his mother.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like the dynamics there are so insane and twisted that that poor child. I mean, shit.
and I'll say this much too: like, there's no way that there won't be books written about this. And heck, that's probably why Richard left. He probably left to write a book about the everything that happened in this town in these last few months.
A book called Mare of Easttown.
Well, you also look at now, because this was shot pretty modern day, like at least after 2017. So social media, everybody having cell phones. There is no way that this kid is ever going to escape it. So it's not like back in the day where he just goes to a different school and nobody knows. Everybody will know. Everyone.
Anytime anyone looks him up in any way, they're going to see this whole story for the rest of his life.
This ancestral kid whose brother killed his mom, his 40-year-old father's cousin. Like, I don't know how they were.
Yeah, when you think about it like that, yeah, it's like, whoa. I got a few more quick things, and then we can go into some speculation stuff. The Katie Bailey storyline had a nice, quick, simple one scene ending. Basically, I'm assuming that was Freddie's house. They're giving it to her to raise her child in. It's like, okay, nice little sweet moment. And then we get sort of the Deacon Marks stuff, which was when she visited him in the jail, and she's like, "Yeah, we know you didn't do it," and he's just like, "Ah, cool." And then he states at the end that he didn't preach for like 8 months or whatever, and he does the little sermon at the end. I thought everything he said was interesting. It was sort of the writer wrapping up the season. Like, okay, this is the messaging, sort of the idea of love and community. I actually thought it was done quite well. I still would like to have known a little bit more about whether or not he was guilty from where he was moved from. I think he says he was innocent, but we don't truly know that, and that bothered me a little bit.
Same here.
I'm like,
I mean, 'cause that kind of matters a lot before you start
it matters
apologizing to the guy.
Yes, because is he completely an innocent good guy that's trying to help out, or is there something there? So yeah, that bothered me a hair. So but I did like the speech he gave. I liked the sermon he gave, and I liked how it led to Mare going to Lori. Any thoughts on Katie Bailey, Freddie, Deacon Mark, sort of those last little bits?
That whole end sequence reminded me of The Wire, how they were trying to tie up all the individual storylines together. And although this one had a much, I don't want to say happier ending, because there's still some pretty fucked up parts, but The Wire was far worse. But when you look at like the way this storyline's wrapped up, the Deacon talking to everybody, and then where they were panning to everybody's face, that to me felt very, like I said, very much like The Wire, and it tying up everybody's story. Like the Freddy's house thing, all the characters felt like they had closure. But me looking at it, I still, whether the Deacon's guilty or not, I wouldn't have gone to church there, because I would just been like, "Yeah, this ain't gonna work." Because there's still too much speculation, because he still like saw Aaron. Like, it wasn't just.
Yeah,
her, but
I still, because we had
100%
said
innocent.
Yeah, back when that happened, because me and Larry were talking about that, like he should have brought someone with him. Like, okay, you're gonna go pick up this girl. She's out there. She's young. She needs help. Okay, fine. Well, you went by yourself. Why? Like, there's still shit about him that bothers me.
Right?
Yeah, you need a witness, an alibi, something, because doing that by yourself is, even if he was just trying to do the right thing, a good thing, he was already accused of something once, and it was probably a similar kind of situation, but I don't know if he took advantage of that situation or not. And the fact that he was dumb enough to put himself in the exact same situation and then try to cover up evidence, I'm like, nah, fuck that guy. Like, even if he's innocent, I'm like, nope, don't like it.
It is awfully sketchy, and just and the idea, like you said, especially after giving what he was accused of, and then he's willing to meet kids from his youth group that late at night after what he was accused of. You think he would have. You think he would have gone? No, I'm gonna pass the phone to Father Dan or whoever because like this one ain't for me.
Yeah, like you said, if Dan got involved, he could be like, hey, me and Mary can come get you.
Hmm.
Like, and
Yeah.
then have the sheriff, you have these police officers coming to get this child. It never would have been implicated, but him trying to do I was air quoting with my hand again that nobody can see, but like trying to do the right thing. I was like, I don't know. I don't think so.
It's a little sketch.
Yeah.
Um. So, like you said earlier, Larry, yeah, the mayor going into the attic, sort of closing it out. I thought that was perfect. A moment of finally confronting, that trauma. By that scene, as the credits were rolling, I literally thought, wow, they did really sort of address everything. I was thinking of every single individual character, and I was like, yeah, wow, damn. I don't have too many questions. It, yeah, wow, good job. Those are the moments you really appreciate in a show like this because you're like, wow, they really did a good job of structuring this out and playing it out. And that was yet again going to when Mark was given his sermon. I was like Spencer said, it was showing all the different people in the church, and as even his words were matching up with the different things that had occurred and all the different characters. It was all planned out. It wrapped up, and I was quite pleased with it.
I will say though that maybe there are some clues that I missed, and maybe I do need to watch those behind the scenes extras that Spencer watched because I do have one small problem. Like, well, I love this series overall, and it was a good run, and I definitely want to see more from these creators. The B plot, the Katie Bailey plot. I felt like it didn't necessarily have to be connected, and it's fine that it wasn't connected. But it's odd that the perpetrator is someone that we've never seen on the show before, and we didn't get a lot of breadcrumbs as to who it is. And that would have been fine if it was connected to the plot that was about Aaron and whatnot, or if it did connect to other characters in some way. But it feels like that could have. That could have shown a little more connective tissue to show that, hey, it's probably this guy who runs this bar.
The only, it's not contrary thing I have to say to that. The only feeling I have about that personally was that Mare never suspected John. She suspected Billy for a second, but you have John, this person who is living amongst everybody, but fucking a 14-year-old girl, impregnating her, fighting with her. Like, so you don't ever really know a person, and people who are truly evil and fucked up, they don't ever show that face to a vast majority of people. So for us not to know who was kidnapping the girls and doing all that stuff, I think that, to me, I sometimes I reach for the parallels a little bit, but like that one, that's where I saw that was just that the person that was doing all this stuff was just another evil asshole that nobody suspected, but it was kind of out in the open almost because he had cameras everywhere. Like if you walked past a bar, you'd be like, oh, they're just cameras in the bar. But that kind of bar, why would he have cameras? It's not, he's not running like a nightclub. Like, why would you have that many bars outside of a 3 bar stool bar? Like, it's not something that would need that kind of security. So if you're paying attention, like, you would see that, but there'd also not really be a reason to look. And same thing with John. John's this giant piece of shit, but we didn't know that until much later. And it's one of those things where I think the breadcrumbs to John were a little bit more prevalent, but they weren't even John's breadcrumbs. Like, it was Ryan the whole time, but John was still a piece of shit.
I see completely what you're saying, Larry, because we had a lot of theories that sort of connected everything, but then I guess it didn't really bother me by the ending because I felt there was enough closure. So at the end of the day, it was a red herring. I mean, I think that was the whole.
Yeah.
Because that storyline ended in episode 5, and then it was like, well, wow, there's 2 more episodes. And then by the end of episode 6, they're like, well, it was Billy. And then obviously we learn, no, it was John. And they're like, oh, shit, no, it's Ryan. So I think it was just the show messing with us by taking a previous case and sort of making you think they're connected when they're really not. If this episode hadn't hit the way it did, that's definitely something that would have stuck out to me. See, and that's the thing with a lot of entertainment. It's like, look, if you write your shows properly, I'll forgive plot holes. I'll forgive things that maybe don't pay off necessarily, because if I leave it feeling like it was complete and to a degree, it'll be okay. Going back, and I don't even want to bring it up, but like I had some beefs with Lovecraft Country. Because we get into that last like 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm like, well, there's a lot of shit that doesn't really connect or make sense to me, and it really highlighted any other problems I had with the show. So it's tough, and to write something like this is, I'm sure, very difficult because it's a proper balance that has to be achieved. But no, I don't disagree with you, Larry. But I think this episode was good enough to where it didn't bother me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the sort of thing. The writing is so good that I can kind of forgive that. But if I were to see any flaw in this show, potentially it's kind of that. And like you said, the fact that we did get so many good resolutions and overall it was so well written, that's totally forgivable to me. And I'm glad you bring up Lovecraft Country because much like that, regardless of that, I'd still 100% recommend that to people. We had a friend who watched the show long after we were done watching and reviewing it. Not this show, but Lovecraft Country. And, I was still excited to hear their opinions on things and to go through with it with them. And I could say the same about Mare of Easttown. Regardless of that ending, I'd still advise anyone to check this show out. Anyone who loves a good mystery.
Well, I think when you look at the format, so this one was dubbed as a miniseries. It was just going to be 7 episodes, nothing else. Whereas Lovecraft Country, I don't know that they ever got the memo that they could get canceled after 1 season. So I think that the way it built up, like the end, they were anticipating being able to explain all that. Now, I still had a lot of questions and gripes with it, but this one, I think the structure for what they had helped them a lot because they're just like, hey, we're going to tell this story and we're done.
Yeah, now, 7 hours. They designed it that way, yeah.
But they also, it's similar to Perry Mason. Perry Mason did the exact same thing. But then once they found out they got picked up, they kind of just shot like a slightly so that they could carry it on. And I think that had this show decided to do that, you could still explore her solving another case. And it's not hard to do. They could have easily done another season, but I think that knowing their constraints, knowing that they're trying to do 1 season and 1 season only, helped them tremendously.
Yeah, they don't. If they want to do more Mare stories, I'm all for it. If they don't, fine. But Lovecraft, fucking hell, please give me another season or something, a movie.
Right?
You can't end it that way. That still bugs me. But I would recommend it also. Like there are certain specific episodes of Lovecraft that I'd be like, just watch this. It's that good.
episode.
But going back to Mare, well, yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit. I don't want to go too long. We're almost at about an hour, but what the hell is the finale? Yeah, Larry, you were saying something like Fargo. I don't know if I agree. I like Mare and I like Helen, and I think you like you said. I don't disagree. You could leave the town. Maybe she goes on that vacation she mentioned, and maybe she does something in another town, or maybe she gets pulled to another town for a case, or something happens within the town. But I think they did such a good job of building certain characters. I really want to see them again. And it's very odd. Similar, Perry Mason did a good job. By the end of it, you were excited knowing you're getting a second season because this new team dynamic they were setting up. You're like, yes, yay, this is going to be great. But yeah, I want to see Mare again. I think she's a great detective character. Like a any great detective.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think you're like, because I was thinking about it as we were talking also, and the Fargo thing, like that could work. And, because the characters are great because the writers are great, the showrunners are great. But, there are ways outside of the Fargo thing, there's other ways they could, because I thought about like, what if Richard is murdered? He's going off to be a professor in some other town somewhere else. That'd be a great way to draw her to a different case in a different town in some way. The vacation angle, that's a good idea to get her to leave town, but she'd also lose jurisdiction, so she'd need a motivation, to solve a case somewhere else.
That's never slowed her down before.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. That would be
yeah.
in character for Mare.
I like the Richard angle. You're right. He's going to a college in another town.
I don't know. That would make it feel like Taken to me. Like going places in.
Dude, Murder She Wrote. She's traveling around solving murders.
Instead of like Mare of Easttown, it's like Mare of Norfolk, Mare of Taken. You're just going like
Mare of Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, you can go to big cities, Easttown to like Mare of New York. It's like, but
I would
watch.
watch.
Then she goes international. Then she's in Paris, or she goes up to Canada.
Like no, I think you picked the right setting. Mare of Myrtle Beach. I'd have to check that out.
Mare of Stuttgart. It turns into like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
But we could also go. I don't know. We could do a time skip as well. We can do like 10 years from now or something. Something happens and still have these characters. But I'd want some amount of time because this show is also very grounded in a way. So to have a series of murders or whatever, or to have like a big case just next year would feel odd for this show.
You're right, and that would be one of the issues they would run into if they wanted to go multiple seasons. Is it'd be like, how come psychopaths and serial killers always come at you? Because you're right, the show is very grounded, but I don't know. I think they could do one more maybe if they wanted to. It was a big hit. I mean, we'll see. It was supposed to be a one and done. I don't think there's any talk of a second season, but it was a smash hit for HBO.
Well, I think too, if you tie it in, they're from, I think Eastern Pennsylvania. I looked it up, but I don't remember exactly where it was. But she's a well-known detective now. This is a pretty big deal, pretty big case, and maybe a town nearby is looking for help, because that would help, because Easttown itself, after dealing with this, a small town like that is not going to deal, like you said, with like 3 serial human traffickers, and there's not going to be a lot of those kind of things.
This ain't Big Sky.
Yeah, it's not Big Sky in Helena, Montana with 20,000 people, but it's you could easily do it where now she has some notoriety and she was called, hey, we had a very specific case that had these things happen. Would you be willing to help us? We're looking for your expertise. We know that you did great with this case. Can you come help us? And I think that would be a good way to tie her in, but get her out of almost like a consultant role.
Or what about the first case that she never solved? Like, Mare, remember years ago, case you never cracked, or or something like that.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be a series of missing person cases in an adjacent town that's very similar to the one that Mayor just solved, or something like that. And I'd say something like that. You could set that, and I would set it at least 5 years later, because you have the potential for some personal dramas to take place. And if, like you said, Spencer, if it's a nearby town, we still have her going home at the end of the day. We still have these personal relationships and whatnot. And now we have 5 years later, and Drew's a little bit older, and he's starting to exhibit some of the symptoms that his father is, and we have some personal drama because of that, and other people, and we get to see how Lori is adjusting.
Well, that would put Siobhan out of school too. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I don't know, like what she was pursuing. It could take longer than that. I don't know.
Well, maybe she takes a break before grad school or something and comes home for a little bit.
Dylan's on the police force.
Oh my God, that actually would be a good plot twist, because Dylan is such a horrible person.
Yeah, I think it would work perfect.
Like, Mayor's trying to do good work, and Dylan's a bad cop, and maybe even Mayor's trying to get Dylan off the force or something.
Like, you're partnered with Dylan. She's like, no, we need you to watch him. Yeah, I think there is potential there. We'll see what happens. Like I said, this was a big hit. It was trending for the last 3 or 4 weeks on Twitter. It would go number one most Sunday nights. Of course, there was the big issue last night where we're obviously recording this on Monday, but where HBO Max went down, and man, oh man, boy, oh boy, how do you screw that up? Like, I'm gonna wave my finger at HBO a little bit. The HBO Max, there's a few issues with it. I've run into them in the past myself. I know Spencer has. With the streaming, you guys need to work on it. It has issues. It's not running perfectly, and you can't have shit like this happen on a season finale. You just can't. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Although I've been watching it like all day. I was watching Tacoma Fire Department, the Tacoma FD, with the dudes from Super Troopers.
Oh yeah.
It's the show that was on like True TV. Yeah. I watch it.
Any other things before we wrap this up?
I would like. I'd like season 2 of Perry Mason coming. I like those kind of things. But even with like The Undoing or this, I love this format that HBO is starting to do, where it's just a little miniseries. It's a mystery, because to me, it's a perfect thing to get more people to come over to HBO Max, to subscribe to HBO, because once the mystery's out there, it's ruined. Like, I'd still suggest watching it. So anybody who hasn't, like, it's still a great story, great acting, but to get people to want to watch it as it's airing, this is a great way to do it. And I think that they're tapping into getting some higher level actors. They're doing a great job getting some great writers. And I think that this is a great way to try to draw in numbers for HBO.
Yeah, I agree. I do have one more question. It's, I guess, kind of a big one, even though we're trying to close. It's like, so given the cover up and everything, like prior to that cover up, wouldn't even be able to ask this question. But given the cover up that took place in the show, should Lori be going to court? Should she be doing some jail time, because she was a part of that?
So yeah, we can go into all that real quick. I thought about that. I absolutely did. And my assumption is they just weren't going to pursue charges, because we get this shot of her visiting Ryan at the police station, and then of course the shot at the end, and it was supposedly a lot of time had passed. So my theory is Billy, they mentioned that Billy was going to be out in like a year. Because he was part of the cover up, but he was going to be out. My assumption is John's going to be out fairly soon as well, unless he gets charged with the relationship with Aaron. Depending on how that goes, he may get out fairly soon. Ryan, depending on how they charge him, he may be out by time he's 18. Shit, he might be out earlier than that. And then my assumption is they weren't going to pursue charges on Lori. Now, clearly, the show doesn't tell us any of this. This is just my assumption. But yeah, I don't know, Spencer. What do you think?
The only thing that they told us was that the preaching was around 8-9 months after all this shit happened, because they let was it Mark, the deacon?
Yeah,
So,
he said 8 months.
So they let Mark out. He hasn't preached in 8 months. So I don't know if that was the beginning of him getting looked at, or if that was after he got released, or what. Either way, it's been 6 to 8 months, and they show Lori in the crowd. Lori, I don't think is getting brought up on anything, but to me, the John stuff is the biggest question mark. I think Billy, one of them, I think would have to take the fall. You know what I'm saying? Like if they both got released early, Aaron's dad, like that whole side, there would be civil suits. There'd be all kinds of shit if they both get out early. Now, if Billy gets released in a year or two because he's found and they say that it really was, crime of passion kind of thing, temporary insanity, whatever. But either him or John, I personally feel, would have to be locked up for a longer period of time to feel like justice was done for a lot of those people within the town. It doesn't mean that,
I'm not going on what I want. I'm going on what I think might happen.
But,
I don't know.
But I also think John, just based on everything that happened, based on him covering it up, based on him, sleeping with a 14-year-old, impregnating a 16-year-old, when it's not like he's a young college student and they met at a party and he's like 19 and she's 16. Like he's 40 fucking a 14-year-old. So the laws with that, I don't know what they are in Pennsylvania. I didn't look it up, but where we're at, that's under the age, not even under the age of consent. That's like you can't consent to that. I think it's under 13 and the charges are way worse.
Yeah.
But so I think knowing the timeline would help clarify some of that as far as how much trouble he would get in. But I don't imagine that he would not at this point get in a lot of trouble. And hopefully he would make it out of prison, but who knows? That's a little vindictive, but
like I said, I'm basing it on
I can't
on what I think might happen, because he's not going to get charged with murder. So and then even if he gets charged with the Aaron stuff, it really depends on how extreme the sentence would be. And as a matter of fact, he might even use DJ as a way to get out earlier, depending. Looking at it from a lawyer side.
Well, that's why I was saying I don't know the Pennsylvania's.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Laws, like how strict they are or how much they, fight on the side of the parent. But I think that with Billy looking like he's going to get out, not Billy, Ryan looking like he's not going to do a lot of time, it would almost, for a lawyer to get Ryan out, John would have to take the fall, and I think almost vice versa.
But he wouldn't take the fall for the murder.
No, but to me, to spin it to where Ryan is less guilty and getting out early, it's that he was trying to defend his family. His dad was doing something wrong.
Yeah,
and
Ryan was 13. I mean, I think they can. I think there's a way to play that, but the only charge you can get John on is the cover up. And then the relationship with Aaron. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
In other words, unless they were trying to prove some kind of conspiracy that he was involved in Ryan going and committing the murder.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that it's the way I'm looking at it is how to get Ryan out early. And for Ryan to get out early, I feel like they would have to point the finger at John, because he saw his dad talking to Aaron. He heard the fight. He, talked with his dad. Him and his dad were keeping this secret. So it's all these things where it's almost like child abuse. Like he's manipulating his kid.
Well, that's
And
why I was said the conspiracy. You would have to try and prove that John led to Aaron's death somehow.
that's what I'm saying. So
But
whether or not,
I don't see that. If he if he got a decent lawyer,
yes, but that's what I'm saying is that it would have to be John versus Ryan. And that's what I'm saying is that one of them would have to get in more trouble for the other one to get out. And that's where I was like, I don't know which one would end up taking the fall, because by the end of this uh, episode, it showed that John was willing to go to prison for murder to protect his child. So I don't foresee it going that direction, because there's no other way for, I mean, like I said, it's all speculation, but
yeah, yeah.
and I've seen the court system fuck some people over. So I can't say it's,
Like I said, Ryan admitted openly that he committed the murder. So, like I said, the only you can't pin the murder on John. There's no legal way to do it unless you try to say some kind of conspiracy where he somehow Ryan doing it was guided by John. Otherwise, there's no way to put the murder on John.
I don't disagree, but murder's not the only thing that would put him in prison.
Yes.
That's
But
what I'm
then
saying.
you go to the relationship thing. But how long would a sentence be?
Depends on the judge. There's so many variables, and I'm not. I mean, I like math, but I'm not great at calculus, so I couldn't tell you with the imaginary numbers what the
Yeah,
formula.
I think the reason they left a lot of that out, it would. I mean, that's a whole episode. You
Oh
know
yeah,
the
at least.
you know, and I guess they figured it really didn't matter at the end of the day, unless there are more seasons.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
something they could easily clarify and go into, because that could also cause more drama. It could cause, you know, animosity between characters again. So I think it's a great way to kind of fill into a second season if they were to do it, which I don't think there's any plans to, but with the success of it, they might. But uh, like I said, I don't think it's important to the one and done story arc kind of format.
What about you, Larry? You asked the question. What do you
Yeah.
think Lori should go to prison, or what do you think? How do you think the
I think
DA will go through with any of this?
I think legally she should, but I think Spencer kind of spelled it out when he said that 8 months have passed. There's been 8 months and no charges or anything.
Yeah.
So my best sort of estimation of what happened here is that they decided not to approach it because they're a small town and everybody knows each other, and they said, well, enough's enough since she only did it to a day, so we're not even going to approach the subject, because if we do, the answer is yes, because she helped, conceal this crime. So yeah, she's guilty of that and should do some time, at least. Well, not as much as Billy, because Billy, was very involved, but she should do some time.
Yeah, like I said, I think what happened was since she had the kids, they just were like, we're not even going to pursue it, and they just threw it out.
That's
And
right,
then
because that creates a whole nother can of worms there.
when it came to Billy, he'll get out, and then John's a big question mark depending on the charges, and then Ryan is too. They were keeping him in it looked like a pretty nice facility. It's like this nice little juvie facility. So my assumption was they would try and make sure he got out by 18. Like I said, this is all guesswork. I don't know. This is just what I'm getting based on what we saw.
The only thing I have to say about Lori, though, is that the only thing they could really get her on, because she didn't cover anything up, she didn't find out until the end. It would be almost like obstruction.
Yeah,
I don't know, like
because
how.
Billy physically moved a body. That's why he was in prison.
Yeah, and she didn't find out the way they showed it until basically the day where all the arrests happened. Like, she had just found out.
Yeah.
So, but she did lie directly to Mayor when Mayor came and asked her specifically, "Hey, what do you know?" And she lied. So
Yes, that would have been the charge right there.
yeah, it'd be obstruction of justice or whatever. So I don't know how much that would carry. given the circumstance, or if they would even pursue it, like you said.
If there are any lawyers listening or anyone in the legal system that would have an idea, I would love to hear it. And if it's good enough, I'll pin it actually because I am very curious. I'm sure others are as well. Any other thoughts on Mare of Easttown?
Yeah, I think that's it for me. We pretty much exhausted every aspect of this episode, I think.
And that's what we do here. And if you enjoy that, we do that with all the shows that we watch, shows, movies, various things. We've got plans for the months of June and July. And that would be Why Women Kill Season 2, which will be later this week. We'll be doing those episodes. Loki will be starting, I believe, next week. We'll be doing those. We're talking about doing Rick and Morty. And then there's the Fear Street trilogy. Netflix will be running in July. We're planning on doing those. I've checked other things. I'm not seeing a whole lot of new, especially with HBO, new content really over the summer. Everything's going to kick back off in August or September. But if there's anything on Netflix or HBO or anything that we're not doing that you think is happening in June and July that you'll be watching and you would like for us to do, please leave it in the comments. I will be reading all the comments. Not guaranteeing we'll do it, but we'll definitely take a look at it. We're always looking for new stuff to cover. And that's about all I have to say there. You guys have anything else? Or I will end this.
I'm going to end you in a minute.
We're going to go another hour because it's not like Spencer has to wake up in like 6 hours for work.
I got up in 7 hours.
Hey, I'm off tomorrow. Let's go.
All right. So, yeah, we appreciate it. This has been a great series to cover, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.